Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. If you have a chance at working at one of these firms, which one should you choose? Which of these firms is the best one to work at? You'll find out by the end of this video. Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG are collectively known as the Big Four. They get their name, the Big Four, because they're the four biggest professional service companies in the world. In fact, together last year, they produced over $200 billion in revenue while employing over 1.1 million people. To put it another way, if the Big Four were its own country, they would be the 25th wealthiest country in the world. And on a per capita basis, they would be the third wealthiest country in the world. A career at any of these companies would not only change your career, but also change your life. So let's dive in. We'll start off with Deloitte, which was the oldest of the Big Four, being established in 1845. But not only is Deloitte the oldest of the Big Four, it's also the largest in terms of employee count, in terms of presence, and in terms of revenue. Deloitte has over 700 offices across more than 150 countries and employs over 450,000 people. And last year, Deloitte made over $64 billion, making it the largest by revenue of the Big Four. Like the other members of the Big Four, which we'll go into later on, Deloitte makes its money through its consulting practice, its auditing practice, its advisory practice, and its tax and legal practices. We'll go into a little bit more detail later, but one thing you should know is Deloitte stands out when it comes to its technology practice as well as its implementation practice. The second largest of the Big Four is PwC, which came as a result of a merger in 1998. And similar to Deloitte, PwC also has over 700 offices across more than 150 countries, and it employs currently more than 360,000 people. And last year, PwC made over $53 billion across its consulting practice, advisory practice, auditing practice, and legal and tax services. One of the things that makes PwC stand out, though, is its transaction advisory service. Next, we have EY, which came as a merger in 1989. And as you can guess from the name, the merger came from the E, which is Ernest and Whitney, and Y, Young and Company. And similar to Deloitte and PwC, EY also has over 700 offices across more than 150 countries, and they employ over 300,000 people. Last year, EY made over $49 billion. Finally, you have KPMG, which is the smallest of the Big Four, but it's not small by any means. KPMG was also established as a series of mergers in 1987. And currently right now, it has over 650 offices across 147 countries and employs over 200,000 people. Last year, KPMG made over $36 billion across its multiple practices, with a growing practice in consulting, especially within its digital transformation practice. Now you know more about the size of the Big Four, I want you to look at where their revenue comes from. So I made this chart for you to explain where you can see the revenue here. As you can see, I want you to notice that two things stands out, which is that regardless of the Big Four, the two big practices that among all of them is their consulting and advisory practice, as well as their audit and assurance. This is like the bread and butter for all of these. I want you to see where they make this money from. Besides where the revenue comes from, there's a lot of similarities when it comes to working at these firms. So let's talk about what they are. So first off, no matter which one you pick, they all have a global presence and a global name. In fact, all of the Fortune 500 companies are served by at least one of these Big Four companies. So no matter which one you come to, having a name like KPMG, Deloitte, PwC, EY on your resume is going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Second, the work-life balance is quite similar. You're going to be expected to work anywhere between 45 to 55 hours on average, but some projects might be higher than 70 hours. It depends on the project, but the work-life balance is very similar. Third is that each of these Big Four really invest in their people. So no matter which firm you pick, you're going to get access to training materials from the day you start. So for example, Deloitte has something called Deloitte University, which is this library of online courses that you can take anytime you want. In fact, when I was going through the Deloitte University, you can see that there's over 6 million hours of material in there that you can learn. But just from personal experience though, this should not be the only reason why you want to work at a Big Four, because while it is 6 million hours of footage, let's be honest, you're not going to go through all of them, and you're really just going to focus on the ones that are relevant to your case or just a personal interest. So it should not be the only one, but just know that there are libraries like these among all Big Four companies. And you can tell that the career development and talent development works because it opens up a lot of exit opportunities for all the people who go through. But before you have all the benefits of working at a Big Four, you actually have to get in. And so the recruiting process, luckily, is very similar. There are 3 phases for each of these firms. There's the application phase where you submit your resume and cover letter. There's the online assessment phase where you take a series of online assessments. And then third is when you're called into interviews. I won't cover it in this video because I actually have videos that outline each of these 3 phases for each of the firms. So in total, there's a lot of videos that cover this. I'll link that in the description. So if you're, for example, going to KPMG and taking the online assessment, you can go to that video. So now we talked a lot about these firms. You're probably thinking, wow, there's a lot of similarities. So Davis, what actually makes them different? And it comes down to one word: culture, which is the collective attitudes of every single person who works at the firm. But what does that actually mean for these firms? And how do we find out about the culture? Luckily for you, I've spent over 40 hours talking to current and former Big Four employees to find out what makes their firm so different. I'm sharing with you what I learned learn talking one-on-one with employees and ex-employees at these firms, and also reading through hundreds and thousands of Glassdoor reviews. All right, so this is what I found out. So we'll start with what makes the culture very similar, and then we'll talk about the nuances of each of the four. So collectively across the three things, you're gonna find three positives when it comes to working at any of the big four. The first is that you get to work with really great people and colleagues. Second is that you get professional growth that you're rarely gonna find anywhere else. And third, you get really great benefits. But with these pros also comes two common cons across all four. The first is that you're going to be working a lot of hours compared to your friends who aren't working in the big four or aren't working in consulting. And second is that because you're working long hours, you have to make compromises when it comes to your personal life. So just be prepared for that. I'm going to share with you what makes each culture unique so that you can consider which one to take. For example, when it comes to Deloitte, you can actually expect longer hours working at Deloitte compared to the other big four. But the benefit of this is that Deloitte invests a lot more per capita compared to the other big four when it comes to staff development. So you can get a lot more training, a lot more career development at Deloitte, but it comes at a cost of working longer hours. At PwC, one of the things you're going to find from PwC employees and former employees is how connected the PwC network is, no matter if you're working across different offices, different countries, or different projects. There's just something about PwC in bringing people together, even if they're working on different projects, different countries, and different offices. But one of the cons that I saw of working at PwC compared to others is that they can oftentimes move a lot slower. So there is a little bit of bureaucracy when it comes to getting new ideas implemented and making changes. When it comes to EY, one of the benefits is that they offer a rotational program that allows you to see different parts of the company, work with different projects, different clients, different offices. So that's a huge perk for people who work at EY. However, one note is that compared to the other firms, the project selection could sometimes feel limited depending on when you're up for staffing. At KPMG, the project selection feels the smallest because it is also the smallest of the big four. But because of that, though, there are two benefits, which is the work-life balance here at KPMG is a lot better compared to the other big four. And then second is that KPMG actively works on reducing its churn rate. So you can expect to see a lot of efforts and initiatives to make sure that you're there long-term. Hence, the better work-life balance compared to the other big four. So now you know a bit about what makes each of the cultures different. Which one is the right fit for you? When I think about this, when I work with clients who manage to land multiple offers across the big four companies, the question I always like to ask the people I work with is this: what do you want to do after your time in the big four? And your answer will help you decide which offer to take and which place to apply to. And the best way to know that, and for me to share that with you, is to share with you what happens afterwards. So let's go through and actually look at where do people go after the firm. I spent over 20 hours going through LinkedIn to figure out what exit opportunities exist for the big four, so you don't have to. So here's my summary of what you can expect on average. Again, these are just averages. For example, if you don't see a certain job on the list, doesn't mean you can't get it. It just means that it's not as common. So this is what I found. At Deloitte, it was very common for people to go into roles in corporate strategy within especially Fortune 500 companies. A lot of them went into entrepreneurship, and many of them went into private equity and venture capital. For PwC, a lot of alums went into finance and advisory roles, especially within mergers and acquisition teams. Many held leadership roles within government and public sector, and many went into technology companies. EY had a diverse set of exit opportunities. Many people went into corporate strategy teams, others went into marketing operations or product teams, and many went into finance, especially within private equity. While for KPMG, the exit opportunities I saw the most common were people exiting into healthcare, life sciences, and even policymaking. A lot of people also went on to technology companies, including cybersecurity and even being consultants. And then financial services, largely within banking and insurance, was also another common exit opportunity. So as you go through, I want you to think about what do you want to do after consulting? And if there's a common exit opportunity among those, then there's probably the right one for you. But if you're unsure about what you want to do and you want to keep your options open, then I recommend that you think about the culture that we covered earlier, which is as you're going through the hiring process or recruiting process, which person do you resonate with the most? Because if you want to get the most learning to decide what you want to do afterwards because you're undecided, it's super important. And this is probably the advice that I wish others had given me, is to think about the culture of the people there. Because if you enjoy the culture, when you come to work, you're not going to feel like it's drudgery, but you're actually going to learn, and it's going to set you up for your longer term careers. So there you have it. Now you know the differences between working at each of the four companies and what happens when you accept the job offer. So I'm curious, after you've watched this video, which big four stands out to you? In fact, if you comment below the firm that you want to apply to, I'll send you additional resources to help you land the interview and also pass the interview there. For example, if you type in Deloitte below, I'll send you some free resources to help you land your Deloitte interviews and also prepare you for your Deloitte interviews as well. And if you're 100% serious about becoming a management consultant at one of the big fours or another firm, I'd love to help you even more. Here at My Consulting Offer, we're a team of former recruiters, interviewers, and consultants who help people land jobs in management consulting firms like the big four. And recently, my team and I have put together a training that I want to give you access to for free. All you have to do is click the link below. And in the training, you're going to learn how to land an interview at a big four, as well as how to pass the interview at a big four or another major consulting firm. I want to provide this resource for free because I want to help you get closer to landing your job in consulting. We've helped over 800 people land their consulting offers, and we've done it at a 90% success rate. But you don't take my word for it. Actually hear from Wilson, who used the same process, landing multiple Big Four offers before choosing one. I'm actually going to link to his video next to my head so you can actually see his process going through landing these offers and ultimately which of the Big Fours he actually took. I'll see you in the next video.